How's it? Camera manufacturers want you to believe that the key to getting the best photographs you can is to, of course, buy the latest and greatest piece of kit. Modern cameras are technological marvels, and they have given us the ability to do things that would have just seemed magical even like 20 or 30 years ago. But in one regard, they are still as crappy as the cameras that were made in the 1860s. This is a Canon 5DS, and it's worth about $1,200. It was £3,000 when I first bought it, and this is the photograph that it first took. It is, I think, is rubbish, isn't it? Right? So what a rubbishy camera. It took that awful picture. Why didn't it take any good pictures? Because, of course, it's lacking the thing that all cameras forever have been lacking, and that is the ability to make you creative. The idea that equipment is going to somehow solve the problem of creativity is nothing new. People have been moaning about it forever. Today, it's not a rare occurrence for a photographer, to get involved in photography and to get to a certain level and think, do you know what's holding me back? It's my equipment. If I only had this or only had that piece of gear, then it would open a door to me. And I appreciate, I can see why it happens. I like a new piece of kit as much as the next person. And the camera industry is set up to, to tell you that this is the easiest way to, to become skillful in photography. But you cannot find skill or ability in a box that comes from B&H. You find it from, investing in yourself as a photographer, investing in here. Albert Watson makes, he talks about the creative process in photography, and he says that there's a split in a great image. He said it's 20% technical and it's 80% creative. And I think that's, an interesting insight and one that a lot of photographers struggle with, that they seem to have it backwards, that, they think that the technical aspects are what are really important. And sort of, and they get lost. And the reason that I think this is because they don't invest enough time in learning to use, as Edward Weston said, their equipment to its fullest capabilities. This camera, this 5DS, it wasn't that different from my previous camera, which was a 5D Mark II. And I ummed and ahed for ages about, it can have a 50 megapixel thing, and that would be so great. And, and it will shoot square crop natively. And it's like, which it doesn't actually, but it said it did anyway, right? And I never really used it to its fullest extent. And in many regards, it held me back because I was having to relearn some of the technical things about using the camera. It no longer felt like a natural extension of my hand. And that's what you really should be doing with your technical side of things, is learning the basics. Before you go and buy a new camera, before you invest in new lenses or something, is to learn the basics of your photography, the basic exposures, right? How the camera functions. Learn it until it is second nature, that you don't have to think about it, because the more that it is second nature, the more that you don't have to think about it. The more that you're not fussing over, f-stops and things like that, then the more that you are able to invest in your mind, in the shot, in the creativity. You can spend time thinking about the shot creatively. Anton Corbijn is a Dutch photographer whom I had the pleasure of meeting when I was a student, and he said two telling things. I asked him about his, the look of his photography, which is very grainy, very black and white. And he said the reason for this is because he was poor and he couldn't afford variety of film stocks. So he could only buy one film stock that had to cover all scenarios. So this is how he ended up with these grainy black and white images. And, and he's also said more recently that paring your kit down, going back to the very basics, one lens, all that sort of stuff, forces you to be more creative, because you have to think about how to express yourself using just that one tool, the one piece of equipment at your disposal. When you have a kit bag full of every single lens known to man, and and so then there's too much choice. You are not going to be thinking creatively. You're simply going to be making a choice of lenses that are going to basically make a photo for you. And it's going to be an awful photo, just like the cat thing, because I wasn't investing in the image. I was thinking about the gear was going to make it better for me. There's a theme, when you look at famous photographers throughout history, again and again and again and again, they talk about the fact that the camera is simply a tool, that it is just there to help you express your creative vision. And I know we keep saying this again and again and again, but it needs to be hammered home just how much that gear is not going to make you a great photographer. I think at this point it is important to make a distinction about what is gear's purpose and what it isn't. And it certainly isn't, as you probably guessed, a means to being creative just by having the gear, but it is a way of expressing yourself, in the way that you want to do. Now, if you look at two very famous photographers whose names get bandied around a lot, we've got Henri Cartier-Bresson, who talks about the why he used Leica. He's not because he was a Leica fanboy, or something like that, that he sort of said, look, I want to shoot unobtrusively. I want to be quiet. I want to be quick, right? I don't want to have to lug around like an old, graphics camera and stuff like that. So the Leica suited his approach. And conversely, we have Ansel Adams, who of course is, known for his landscapes and these lovely, prints that he makes and he spends so much time on. And of course, it would make no sense for him to shoot with a Leica because of a variety of reasons. He shot on large format things. So the camera is a way of helping you express yourself through your chosen voice, your chosen message. If you are ever lucky enough to find yourself either talking with a well-known photographer, or any photographer for that matter, whose work that you enjoy, don't ask them what settings they used. Don't ask them what processing they used. And for pity's sake, please don't ask them what camera they used, because none of those things matter. If you like the photographer, if you find their work it speaks to you, it resonates with you, then ask them why they took that photograph. What was it about that particular image that drew them in? What are their influences? What inspires them to create the photographs that they do? That's the true value of listening to a photographer talk. That snippet I mentioned about Albert Watson, I had the pleasure of listening to him through a series of videos talk about the way that he approached photography, about what inspires him, about how he feels about it. Sure, there was some stuff about the technical aspects. I think there was very little about the actual gear beyond, lens choices for portraits, right? Because that's not what is important. What is important is what photographers are moved by. And think about what you are moved by. Think about what inspires you, right? Draw inspiration from it. If you want to invest in your photography, don't buy a new lens, don't buy a new camera. Take a course. Watch movies, buy books, just do something that's going to enrich your visual library, because that's really what is going to improve your photography more so. And until they find a way of injecting that into a camera, then this camera and every other single camera that is ever made is going to be 80% deficient in creating great photographs. I talked about Anton Corbijn earlier. I think his work is absolutely stunning, and I would highly recommend that you go check him out here. It is beautiful. I know that you're going to enjoy it. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.